You know that feeling, right? You're just scrolling and scrolling, and then you look up and an hour has just vanished. Poof, gone. You are definitely not alone in that. Our screens have this incredible, almost magnetic pull. But what's really going on inside our brains? Well, that's what we're going to dive into. We're going to try to understand this super complex relationship we all have with our tech and figure out how we can go from feeling obsessed to feeling back in control.
So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we're tackling that big, nagging question. Are we addicted or are we just really, really obsessed? Then we'll get into some fascinating new research that says it's all about how we use our screens, not just for how long. After that, we're diving into the hard science. I mean, what is actually happening to our brain's structure and function? Then we'll explore that nasty little psychological trap, the FOMO feedback loop. And don't worry, we're going to wrap it all up with some real, actionable strategies you can use to take back your attention.
Okay, so let's kick things off with that feeling. That little voice in the back of your head that so many of us have. You know the one. Man, I think I'm addicted to my phone. We throw that phrase around all the time, but is it actually true? Is it accurate?
You know, this is the exact question that scientists are wrestling with right now. I mean, are we talking about a real clinical addiction the same way we talk about gambling or alcohol, or is it something else entirely? As you might guess, the answer isn't a simple yes or no. It's complicated.
Okay, so let's break this down, because the distinction here is super important. On one side, you've got clinical addiction. This is the real deal, with a strict definition in psychiatry. We're talking about things like building up a tolerance, needing more and more to get the same buzz, and actual measurable changes in the brain's reward circuits. But then, on the other side, we have what most of us probably feel, a behavioral obsession. This is more about that compulsive checking, that little jolt of anxiety when you can't find your phone for 5 minutes, and maybe, just maybe, telling ourselves we only spent 20 minutes scrolling when it was really an hour. All right, this leads us perfectly to our next big point, because this is where the science has taken a really interesting turn. For years, years, the whole conversation was about one thing: screen time. Cut down your screen time. But it turns out, the newest research is showing that we might have been focusing on completely the wrong thing.
Yep, you heard that right. It's not about the total number of hours you spend staring at a screen. A huge, landmark study followed thousands of young people, and what they found was pretty shocking. The sheer quantity of time wasn't the real predictor of harm. So if it's not how long we're on our screens, then what is it?
It all comes down to the quality of how we interact with our screens. Researchers have a term for it: addictive screen use. And look at this definition here. This is not about, watching a movie with your family or FaceTiming a friend. No, this is a very specific compulsive pattern that starts to interfere with your actual day-to-day life. And get this, the signs they look for: loss of control, being totally preoccupied with it, feeling withdrawal. These are the exact same criteria used to diagnose gambling disorder. So yeah, this is being taken very, very seriously.
Okay, so this brings us right to the heart of the matter, the brain itself. Because we're not just talking about bad habits or, a lack of willpower here. No, this kind of addictive screen use has real, measurable, physical effects on our brain.
So first, let's talk about how the brain functions. We're talking about its ability to process information, to make good decisions, to control your impulses. This kind of digital behavior has been shown to actually harm how well your brain does all of those critical jobs. But it doesn't even stop there.
And this is the part that is just wild. It doesn't just mess with how your brain works, it can actually change the physical structure of your brain. We are talking about real, tangible, you can see it on a scan, differences in the brain's architecture.
So which parts of the brain get hit the hardest? Well, take a look. The area that gets hammered most consistently is the prefrontal lobe. You can think of this as your brain's CEO. It's in charge of planning, decision-making, self-control, all the important stuff. And scientists are seeing real physical changes here. We're talking about weaker connections between brain cells, less gray and white matter, and even the cortex itself getting thinner. These are not small tweaks. This is significant.
Okay, so we've looked at the brain science, which is, pretty intense. But how does all of this actually connect to our daily lives, to how we feel emotionally and physically? Well, a huge piece of the puzzle is this nasty psychological trap that I'm sure we've all fallen into, the dreaded FOMO feedback loop. The fear of missing out.
And this cycle here, it's just so vicious. It usually starts with feeling kind of down, maybe a little lonely or just dissatisfied. And what's our first instinct? To connect, right? So we grab our phone and open up social media. But what do we find? not connection. We find everyone else's perfect vacation photos and amazing accomplishments. It's a highlight reel that just triggers massive FOMO and makes us compare our lives. And the result? We end up feeling worse, more unhappy, more isolated, which, crazily enough, just makes us want to pick up our phones again to escape that feeling. And round we go.
And you know, this whole cycle doesn't just mess with our minds. It hits our bodies hard, especially our sleep. Just look at that number, 65.7%. That means nearly 2 out of every 3 young adults in this study had poor sleep quality, and it was directly tied to their screen use. I mean, that is a massive issue just hiding right there in front of us.
So why is this happening? Well, the main bad guy here is the blue light coming out of our screens. It basically tricks our brain into thinking it's the middle of the day. It shuts down the production of melatonin, which is the hormone that signals, hey, it's time to sleep. So we get poor sleep, which then kicks off another one of those vicious cycles, because when we're tired and sleep deprived, our mood tanks, our anxiety goes up, and what do? We reach for our screens for a little escape, which just makes our sleep even worse.
Okay, so we've gone through the problem, we've looked at the brain science, we've unpacked the psychological traps. It sounds a little bleak, I know, but here's the most important part. We are not powerless in this, not at all. So this last section is all about what we can actually do about it. It's about taking everything we've learned and turning it into action so we can get back in the driver's seat.
I love this quote from Dr. Mark Potenza, who's a top researcher in this space. He really nails it. He says the real issue is that we've found it very difficult to tolerate time without using digital technologies. We just can't be bored anymore. His solution? He calls it mindful disconnection. But before we talk about strategies, let's ask a really important question. How do you even know if your own screen habits have crossed a line?
So Dr. Potenza actually gives us this super helpful checklist. As I read these out, just do a quick, honest check-in with yourself. See if any of these resonate. First, a loss of control, like you try to cut back, but you just can't. Second, preoccupation. You're thinking about being online even when you're not. Then there's tolerance, needing more screen time just to feel satisfied. How about emotional discomfort, feeling genuinely anxious or irritable if your phone's not around? And finally, continuing to use it even when you know it's causing problems with your job, your sleep, your relationships. Just recognizing these patterns is a huge, huge first step. Okay, so what do we do about it? Let's start with some strategies for your mind, for your headspace. First, change your focus. Instead of letting the algorithm push stuff that makes you feel bad, actively follow more positive, uplifting people. Another great one, keep a private journal. This helps shift your focus from what will other people think of this to what do I actually appreciate about my life. And this one's huge. Next time you feel lonely, use it as a signal to text a friend and make an actual plan to see them in person. It's really all about consciously focusing on what you have, not what you think you're missing out on.
And it's not just about what's in your head. We can also change our habits and our environment. This stuff is so powerful. Try to enforce some phone-free periods, especially that crucial hour before you go to sleep. If you have to be on your screen at night, please use a blue light filter. Maybe even try a digital detox. It doesn't have to be a month. Just a weekender or even 24 hours can do wonders to reset things. And finally, and this one's really important, take a moment to ask yourself why you're reaching for your phone. If it's to escape feelings of anxiety or depression, then addressing those root causes might be the most powerful thing you can do.
So when you boil it all down, it really comes back to this one simple question. Understanding all the science, all the psychology, that's the first step, and it's a big one. But the next step, well, that's up to you. So I'll leave you with this to think about. Are you in control of your tech, or is it in control of you?